I never thought I'd be the type of guy to get ghosted. My name's Ethan, I'm 27, and I've always believed that if you treat someone with honesty, respect, and genuine care, they'll do the same. That belief shattered last year when my girlfriend, Claire, disappeared from my life like smoke. No text, no call, nothing. One day we were together, planning a small weekend trip, and the next her number was disconnected. Her social media wiped clean of me, and I was blocked everywhere. It was as if the last 2 years never existed. I met Claire during a volunteer event my company sponsored at a local animal shelter. She was bright, kind, funny, at least I thought so. She wasn't the Instagram perfect type, but her presence drew people in. We started dating soon after, and she quickly became part of my world. At the time, I was working in an engineering firm, earning decent money, but nothing fancy. I didn't have luxury cars or designer clothes. My savings were going into a small business idea I'd been developing quietly on the side, an app that matched independent construction contractors with clients more efficiently. Claire never seemed to care about money. She always told me, "You're ambitious, and that's what matters." I believed her. Then came the night everything changed. We were supposed to have dinner, but she never showed up. I called, texted, no reply. The next day, I went to her apartment, empty. The landlord said she'd moved out a week before. I was stunned. Why would she make plans with me if she'd already decided to leave? I searched everywhere online, but she'd gone completely off-grid. It hurt like hell. My best friend Ryan told me to forget her, but it's hard to forget someone who was part of your everyday for years. A month later, I saw her on Instagram again, but under a new handle. Her new profile was filled with pictures from expensive restaurants, trips to Monaco, and designer stores. Beside her, in nearly every photo, was a guy named Marcus, a known tech investor, about 10 years older than her. The caption said everything without saying anything. New beginnings, surround yourself with success. Grateful for those who elevate me. It didn't take a genius to figure out what had happened. She'd left me for someone richer, older, and more powerful. I wish I could say I was angry, but mostly, I was humiliated. I felt small, disposable. I deleted every picture we'd taken, boxed up her things, and buried the memory under the weight of work. I promised myself that I'd never let someone have that kind of power over me again. That's when I made a decision to stop being the underdog. I threw everything I had into my startup. Late nights, endless debugging, pitching to investors who rejected me 20 times over. I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for her. At least, that's what I told myself. But deep down, I wanted to prove that I could build something incredible without anyone's approval. 6 months later, I finally got a breakthrough. A small venture capital firm from Chicago offered to fund my app. It wasn't much, but it was enough to launch. The next year was a blur of sleepless nights and coffee-fueled marathons. But then something amazing happened. Contracts started rolling in. Construction companies were signing up faster than we could handle. The app was efficient, transparent, and actually worked. 2 years after Claire left, my startup was valued at $40 million. I had a small team, a downtown office, and investors begging to expand into new markets. But even with all the success, I couldn't stop thinking about how everything started with that one moment of betrayal. I didn't hate her anymore, but I couldn't deny that she'd lit a fire in me. I kept telling myself that if I ever saw her again, I'd be polite, distant, unbothered. But life doesn't follow your script. 3 years after she vanished, I ran into her again completely by accident. It was at a charity gala for local tech entrepreneurs. I'd been invited to speak about innovation in small business. I was standing near the bar, chatting with one of the sponsors, when I heard a familiar laugh. I turned and there she was, Claire. Her hair was styled differently, and she wore a sparkling silver dress that probably cost more than my first car. But her face, her eyes were the same. The moment she noticed me, her smile froze. For a split second, I saw something flicker across her face, shock, maybe even regret. She was standing beside Marcus, who looked exactly like his online persona, smug, polished, and radiating the kind of arrogance that comes with too much money. He didn't notice me at first, but she did. She excused herself from a group and walked over, her heels clicking like echoes of the past. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I smiled, calm and collected. "Hey, Claire. Been a while." She looked nervous. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Yeah," I said, glancing around. "Got invited to speak. Guess they're running out of people." She laughed softly, a sound that didn't reach her eyes. I've seen your name online. Your company's doing well, something like that, I replied. Then Marcus walked up, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Babe, here you are, he said, not even glancing at me. Then he did. His expression shifted from disinterest to something else entirely, recognition. Wait, he said. Ethan Cole. The guy who built WorkLink. I nodded. Yeah, that's me. He chuckled. Man, I've been trying to get a meeting with your team for months. You're the one behind the system that streamlined the urban rebuild contracts, right? That's right. Claire's eyes darted between us, tension thick in the air. Marcus smiled broadly, extending his hand. Impressive. We should talk business. I shook his hand. Sure, let's. But the look on Claire's face said it all. She hadn't expected this. Not in a million years. Marcus's grip was firm but showy, the kind of handshake meant to assert dominance. I could tell from the way he tilted his chin that he thought he still held the upper hand. Claire stood beside him, trying to hide her unease behind a faint, polite smile. The moment was surreal. 3 years ago, I was the one watching her walk away into his world, thinking I'd never measure up. Now she was standing between us, realizing I was the one she'd underestimated. Marcus was already launching into small talk, asking about potential partnerships, market expansion, and AI integration, buzzwords he probably didn't fully understand. I kept my tone professional, calm, almost disinterested. But every time I met Claire's eyes, I saw something flicker there: conflict, regret, maybe even fear. She was quiet, almost shrinking beside him, and that didn't fit the image I remembered of her, the girl who once dreamed out loud and believed in passion over profit. Let's schedule something, Marcus said, handing me his card. We've got a private fund looking to acquire promising platforms like yours. Could be mutually beneficial. I took the card, slipping it into my pocket without looking. I'll think about it, I said. His smirk faltered slightly. Claire touched his arm, and he excused himself to greet another couple nearby. The moment he was gone, the air between us tightened. Ethan, she started, her voice low. I didn't know, I cut her off gently, that I'd make it. Yeah, I figured. Her eyes filled with something raw, something she was trying hard to suppress. It's not what you think, she said. It never is. For a second, neither of us spoke. The music swelled, laughter echoed across the room, but all I could hear was the faint tremble in her voice. You look good, she said finally, forcing a smile. Success suits you. Guess I just got lucky, I replied. Some people get luckier than others. She flinched, and I almost felt bad, but only almost. She opened her mouth as if to say something else, then stopped when Marcus returned, resting a hand on her lower back like she was property. Babe, let's go find our seats, he said. She hesitated, looked at me one last time, then followed him. Watching them walk away, I felt nothing. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But later that night, as I stood outside the event hall, letting the cool air hit my face, I realized my hands were shaking. Seeing her again had pulled open a door I thought I'd sealed shut. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want closure. I just wanted to understand why she'd ghosted me the way she did. Over the next few days, I got emails from Marcus's assistant, trying to set up a meeting. I ignored the first few, but they kept coming. Finally, out of curiosity or maybe something darker, I agreed. We met at his office downtown. Glass walls, marble floors, the whole I'm important aesthetic. He was charming, confident, and completely oblivious to how much he loved the sound of his own voice. He pitched me an acquisition deal, $25 million for full ownership of WorkLink. It was a laughable offer. My company was worth double that, and he knew it. You're missing the long-term potential, I said. We're scaling globally within a year. He leaned back, smirking. Ethan, I admire your confidence, but trust me, every company thinks they're going to be the next big thing until they hit the wall. I looked at him, studying his expression. He was used to buying people out, not being challenged. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather hit the wall on my own terms. His smirk faltered. Think about it, he said, before someone else buys you out. I stood, shaking his hand. I already have. I walked out, not realizing that conversation was only the start of something much bigger. That night, I couldn't stop replaying his tone, the arrogance, the way he'd spoken to me like I was just another startup kid who'd gotten lucky. But the thing that stuck most was Claire. She'd sat in the corner during the meeting, quiet, observing. She barely spoke, but I noticed how tired she looked, like the life had been drained out of her. When our eyes met once, it wasn't anger I saw. It was something else entirely, regret mixed with desperation. 2 weeks later, everything blew up. A journalist reached out to me, asking for a comment on WorkLink's pending acquisition by Caldwell Ventures. That was Marcus's firm. I was stunned. There was no deal, no contract. I hadn't agreed to anything. Yet somehow, the rumor had gone public and it was affecting my company's credibility. Investors were panicking, thinking I'd sold out. Within hours, I got a call from my board demanding answers. I spent the next 48 hours untangling the mess, sending legal notices, clarifying statements, and reassuring clients. Whoever leaked that info knew exactly what they were doing. And I had a pretty good guess who. I called Marcus directly. "You leaked that story," I said. He didn't even deny it. "It's just business, Ethan. If you'd accepted my offer, this wouldn't have been a problem. Now you're dealing with market backlash. I'm still open to buying you out, though might have to lower the price a bit." My jaw clenched. "You think you can manipulate me into selling?" He chuckled. "Not manipulate. Convince. You're smart, but you're new to this level of the game. Let the big players handle it." I hung up without another word. I was furious but also motivated. I wasn't about to lose everything I'd built to some entitled investor who thought money could buy people. I doubled down. Hired a PR firm. Exposed the false leak. The truth spread fast. Marcus Caldwell had fabricated a merger story to pressure a smaller company into selling. His reputation took a hit. Investors pulled back from him. But the real shock came a few days later when Claire showed up at my office. I hadn't heard from her since the gala, and seeing her there standing in the doorway, with tears in her eyes, sent a chill down my spine. "Ethan," she whispered, "you have no idea what's going on. Marcus, he's not who you think he is. And you're in danger if you don't back off." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. "Danger," I repeated, but she just looked around nervously, like she expected someone to be watching. Her eyes were puffy, and her hands shook as she clutched her purse. This wasn't the same confident, self-assured woman who'd ghosted me 3 years ago. She looked like someone living in constant fear. I motioned for her to come in and closed the office door behind her. She hesitated before speaking, lowering her voice to almost a whisper. "Marcus isn't who he says he is, Ethan. He's been using people companies for years. He doesn't invest to help them grow. He buys them, guts them, and launders money through their assets before shutting them down." I stared at her, not sure if I should believe her. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "Because I didn't know how deep it went until recently. He's done it to 3 other startups. When they wouldn't sell, he ruined them. Fake press releases, false accusations, tax investigations. He finds ways to make them collapse so he can buy their assets cheap." I leaned against my desk, crossing my arms. "And where do you come in?" Her face fell. "I helped him. At first, I didn't know. I thought he was mentoring me, teaching me about business. But I started seeing patterns. People disappearing. Bank accounts drained. He keeps everything under shell companies and fake names. I tried to leave last year, but he threatened me. Said he'd destroy me if I talked." She took a shaky breath. "When you refused his offer, he told his lawyers to take care of you. I don't know what that means yet, but I think he's already moving against you." The leak was just the start. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was hard to process everything she was saying, but part of me knew she wasn't lying. There had been too many strange things lately: random audits, legal letters with no sender, small security breaches in our servers. "Why come to me?" I asked quietly. "Because you're the only one who can stop him," she said. "You're smarter than he thinks. And because I owe you. I was stupid to leave you the way I did. I thought I wanted more, but I just ended up trapped." Her voice cracked again, and for a moment, I saw the old Claire, the one who used to laugh in the kitchen while burning pancakes. But I pushed the memory away. "What exactly do you want from me?" She took out a small flash drive and placed it on my desk. "Proof," she said. "Emails, transactions, documents, all showing what Marcus has been doing. I copied them from his laptop while he was on a call last night. If he finds out it's missing, he'll know it was me. You need to use it before he covers his tracks." I picked up the flash drive, turning it over in my hand. It felt heavier than it should. "And what happens to you?" I asked. "You can't just go back." She shook her head. "I'm leaving tonight. New name, new place. But I needed you to know. If you don't fight him, he'll destroy you." Before I could say anything else, she turned and walked out. I didn't stop her. My mind was spinning too fast. I spent the rest of the night in my office, staring at the flash drive. Part of me wanted to toss it out the window and forget the whole thing, but curiosity and maybe vengeance got the better of me. I plugged it into my computer, half expecting some kind of virus. But instead, folders opened, dozens of them. Inside were spreadsheets, email exchanges, and signed documents linking Marcus Caldwell to offshore accounts and illegal fund transfers through multiple shell companies. It was all there, clear, detailed, undeniable. If this got out, he wouldn't just lose his business, he'd face federal charges. I barely slept that night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called my lawyer, James, a man I trusted completely. He took one look at the files and said, "This isn't just shady, it's criminal." We decided to contact a federal financial crimes unit anonymously and provide the evidence. But before we could move forward, weird things started happening. My car alarm went off at 3 a.m. for no reason. My office servers went down for hours due to a malware attack. Then my security cameras caught a black SUV parked across the street for 3 nights in a row. Someone was watching me. I didn't want to believe Claire was right, but deep down, I knew she was. Marcus had realized the flash drive was gone, and if he knew she'd taken it, he'd come after both of us. The next morning, I went to my office early, but something was off. The door was slightly open. My stomach tightened as I pushed it wider and saw the place completely ransacked. Files scattered, drawers overturned, monitors smashed. Someone had been looking for the flash drive. My assistant, Jenna, arrived minutes later, gasping at the mess. I told her to call the police while I checked the safe in my office wall. It was still locked. Inside was the flash drive, exactly where I'd hidden it overnight. They hadn't found it. I took it and left before the cops arrived. That same day, I got an email from an unknown address. No message, just one image, a photo of Claire sitting in a car, looking terrified. The timestamp was from the previous night. I felt my stomach drop. I tried calling her number, it was disconnected. She'd disappeared again, but this time, I knew it wasn't by choice. I went to the authorities immediately, showing them the files and the picture. The agent in charge took it seriously. He said they'd been investigating Marcus Caldwell for years but could never get anyone close enough to confirm anything. "If what you're giving us is real," he said, "you might have just blown open a major case." They took the evidence and told me to stay cautious. But 2 nights later, someone broke into my home. I woke up to glass shattering downstairs. I grabbed my phone, called 911, and hid in my room with the lights off. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. The intruder didn't take anything, they were looking for me. By the time the police arrived, whoever it was had already gone. My front door was wide open. The only thing they'd left behind was a note taped to my kitchen counter. It said, "You should have sold when you had the chance." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about money anymore. This was war, and if Marcus thought I was going to fold, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I didn't sleep that night. The note sat on my kitchen counter like a silent threat, mocking me. My heart pounded with a mixture of anger and adrenaline. They'd crossed a line. It wasn't just business anymore, it was personal. I spent the next morning meeting with the federal agents again, turning over the note, security footage, and the photo of Claire. The agent, a serious man named Riley, didn't sugarcoat it. "You need to disappear for a while," he said. "Until we can confirm what we're dealing with, you're a liability." He wasn't wrong. I could feel eyes on me everywhere I went. My phones were probably tapped, my emails tracked. I shut everything down, my social media, my public appearances, even the company's press communications. My board didn't like it, but they trusted me enough to know something big was happening. Meanwhile, Riley's team began quietly pulling records from Marcus's network. The evidence on that flash drive was just the tip of the iceberg. Offshore transfers, identity fraud, bribery, his empire was rotten from the inside out. But as much as the agents wanted to move fast, bureaucracy slowed everything down. They needed airtight proof, or Marcus would slip through their fingers. That's when I made a decision that went against everything they advised. I was going to confront Marcus myself. Not physically, not recklessly, but strategically. I wanted him to know I wasn't scared, that I wasn't backing down. I scheduled a meeting through one of my mutual business contacts, pretending to consider his offer again. His assistant responded within an hour, setting a time at his private office the next day. When I arrived, the place was spotless, minimalist decor, expensive art, panoramic view of the city. He greeted me with that same smug grin that used to make my blood boil. "Ethan," he said, "I was starting to think you'd forgotten how to negotiate." I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. "I just wanted to see what kind of man thinks threats will make someone sell." He chuckled. "Threats? Don't be dramatic. This is business. I leaned forward. Breaking into my house and sending me photos isn't business. His smile didn't fade, but his eyes sharpened. You think I did that? You're overestimating my interest in you. I stared at him, trying to read his expression. He was calm to calm. Either he was an incredible liar, or he truly didn't care about the chaos he'd unleashed. You made a mistake leaking that story, I said. You made a bigger one coming after me. He smirked, standing up and walking toward the window. You really believe you're untouchable because you've made a few $1,000,000. You're playing in a world that eats men like you alive. He turned, his tone suddenly cold. Sell the company, Ethan, before you lose more than you already have. I rose slowly. I'm not selling. He gave a small, almost pitying smile. Then you've already chosen your ending. I walked out, pulse pounding, not daring to look back. Outside the building, I called Riley and told him everything. He said they were really close to bringing formal charges. But they needed one more piece of hard evidence, something that tied Marcus directly to the fake acquisitions and laundering operations. Claire had hinted there were hidden backups on Marcus's private servers, the kind she hadn't been able to access. That night, I got an encrypted message from an unknown number. It said, "He knows you went to the feds. Get out." Attached was a short video clip, grainy security footage from what looked like a warehouse. Claire was there, tied to a chair, terrified, with someone walking behind her, face obscured. My stomach turned cold. The timestamp was from that morning. I called Riley immediately, and within hours, a small task force was mobilized. They traced the video's metadata to an industrial area outside the city. It was risky if it was a setup. We'd all be walking into a trap, but we didn't have a choice. We arrived just before midnight, lights off, armed agents surrounding the perimeter. The building was quiet, too quiet. When we breached, the place was empty except for a single chair and a camera still recording. On the wall behind it was a message spray-painted in red. "You're too late." My knees went weak. Riley ordered everyone to search the premises, but there was nothing else, no signs of a struggle, no vehicles nearby, nothing. It felt like the world was closing in. Back at the station, I sat in silence while agents worked frantically to trace new leads. Hours later, Riley came in holding his phone. "We found her," he said. My heart nearly stopped. "Where?" "She turned herself in. She walked into a hospital on the outskirts. Said she escaped." I exhaled, relief and dread colliding in my chest. "They brought her in the next morning. She was pale, bruised, but alive. When I saw her, I felt something twist inside me, not love, not even forgiveness, but a sense of unfinished history." "He knows you went to the feds," she said weakly. "He's going to burn everything, his accounts, his data, everything that can prove what he's done. But I know where his last backup is. It's not digital." She handed Riley a small key wrapped in tissue. "There's a storage locker under his name, fake ID, but I know where. It's in his assistant's name, under an alias. That's where he keeps the real records." Within hours, the agents were in motion again. They traced the locker to a private storage facility downtown. When they opened it, what they found was staggering boxes of paper trails, fake contracts, account ledgers, even photographs linking Marcus to several known financial criminals overseas. It was everything we needed. The evidence was overwhelming. Within days, federal warrants were issued, and Marcus Caldwell was arrested at his home in front of a swarm of cameras. The headlines exploded across every platform. Tech investor arrested in multi-million-dollar laundering scandal. Watching it all unfold felt unreal. The man who tried to destroy me was being led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling. But victory didn't feel like triumph, it felt hollow. Claire stayed under protection for weeks as part of the investigation. She avoided me at first, ashamed, but eventually, we spoke privately. She told me everything: how Marcus had manipulated her, used her as a pawn, how she'd watched him destroy lives and had been too afraid to fight back until she saw what he planned to do to me. "You were the only good thing I ever had," she said through tears. "And I ruined it." I didn't have words. There wasn't anything to say that could undo the past. I told her to focus on rebuilding, that I'd handle the rest. She left the city soon after. The investigation went national, and my role in exposing Marcus made headlines. My company became a symbol of resilience in the tech industry. Investors who'd once doubted me came flooding back, offering more than I could ever take. I should have felt vindicated, but I didn't. The whole experience left a mark deeper than success could cover. Still, I wasn't done, because a few weeks later, I found something that changed everything again. Hidden in one of the folders from Marcus's locker was a small handwritten note addressed to me. It said, Not everything I owned was mine, and beneath that, a list of offshore accounts including one that had my name on it. When I first saw my name on that list, I thought it had to be a mistake. I never had an offshore account, never moved a single dollar outside the country, never played in that gray area where the rich hide their money. But there it was, my name, my old address, and a bank account in the Cayman Islands with a balance that made my stomach twist. Nearly $2 million. At first, I thought maybe Marcus had forged something, used my name as a front, but the more I looked, the less sure I was. The handwriting on the note was definitely his, but it wasn't written to threaten me. It was like a warning. I gave the files to Riley, who immediately launched a financial forensics check. Within 48 hours, he called me with news that made my blood run cold. The account's real, he said. It's registered under your social security number. But the funds don't trace back to you, they trace back to Marcus's companies. He's been routing money through an account in your name for at least a year. My mind spun. Why would he do that? Probably insurance, Riley said grimly. If things ever went south, he could claim you were involved in his laundering operation. You'd take the fall while he disappeared clean. It all made sense now, the leak, the intimidation, the threats. He hadn't just been trying to force me to sell. He'd been setting me up from the beginning. Every move I'd made since rejecting his offer was a step into a trap he'd built long before I even knew it existed. I sat in my office long after the call ended, staring out at the city. The man was in custody, but somehow he'd still managed to reach out from behind bars, leaving one last snake coiled around my name. My company's lawyers immediately started damage control, but it was complicated. Even though the feds believed me, the account's existence meant everything I owned could be frozen until they untangled it. Weeks passed. Investigations dragged on. The media had already made Marcus the villain of the year, but whispers began to circulate online about me being his silent partner. News sites started digging into my past, painting half-truths and speculations as fact. Self-made entrepreneur or criminal prodigy. One headline read, I'd gone from hero to suspect overnight. It was infuriating, humiliating, but I couldn't lash out publicly. Every word I said could be twisted. My legal team told me to keep quiet and wait it out, but I wasn't going to just wait. If Marcus had left me that note, it meant something. Maybe it was a final taunt, or maybe it was a clue. I had his handwritten letters from the locker files, thousands of pages of correspondence. I spent nights reading through them, trying to find patterns, symbols, anything that stood out, and then I noticed it. In every letter he'd written over the past year, the letter was slightly tilted, a small imperfection only visible when magnified. But in the note he left for me, that it wasn't tilted. It was perfect. That handwriting wasn't Marcus's. It was someone imitating him. I ran the samples through a forensic analyst my company had used before. 2 days later, the results came back. 83% probability the note was written by Claire. My pulse spiked. It didn't make sense. She'd helped bring him down. She'd nearly died doing it. Why would she forge something like that? I called Riley immediately, and we dug deeper. The more we traced, the stranger it got. The offshore account hadn't been created by Marcus at all. It had been created 6 months after Claire started working with him, under her authorization as a junior financial liaison. She had access to those systems long before she met me again. Riley looked grim. You think she set you up? I didn't want to believe it. Not after everything she'd gone through. Not after the way she'd begged for forgiveness. But when we subpoenaed the full transfer logs, the truth hit hard. The last transaction to that account, $500,000, had been wired 3 days before Marcus's arrest. From one of Claire's private accounts. She'd made it look like Marcus had used my name, but in reality, she'd been the one moving the money. Riley was furious. We thought she was a victim, but she's been playing both sides. She probably planned to disappear with that money once Marcus went down. The flash drive, the warnings, all of it was her way of cleaning her trail while making you look complicit. I felt sick. Betrayal had come full circle, sharper and deeper than before. She'd fooled everyone, even the FBI. By the time we tracked her, she was gone. Her safe house was empty, her phone destroyed, her aliases burned. The only thing she'd left behind was a handwritten note on the hotel desk. I told you Marcus wasn't who you thought. But neither was I. That was the last I ever heard from her. The case against Marcus still went forward. He was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and money laundering, sentenced to 20 years without parole. But his empire was so tangled with offshore accounts and shell companies that much of the money was never recovered. And Claire, she vanished into the wind with enough stolen funds to start a new life anywhere in the world. The feds eventually cleared my name, confirming I had nothing to do with any of it. But the damage was done. My reputation recovered, my company thrived again, but something inside me changed permanently. The success no longer felt like victory, it felt like armor. I'd spent years believing that money and power could protect me, but all it did was make me a target for people who saw me as a means to their end. One night, months after it was all over, I got an anonymous message in my inbox. No sender, no signature, just a single line. "You're richer than him now, Ethan. Congratulations." Attached was a screenshot of a bank transfer $2 million wired into one of my dormant accounts. The same offshore account that had once been a trap. I called Riley immediately, but by the time investigators traced it, the sender was untraceable. The money had come from a source disguised through multiple international relays. There was no doubt in my mind who it was from: Claire. Maybe it was guilt money. Maybe it was her way of saying goodbye. Or maybe she just wanted to remind me that no matter how far I went, I'd always be connected to the game she played. I left the money untouched, a reminder of what greed, betrayal, and ambition can cost a person. People think wealth solves problems, but I learned the truth the hard way. Sometimes it's the bait that ruins everything. And every now and then, when I see her name trending somewhere online, rumored to be living in Bali or Monaco or God knows where, I don't feel anger anymore. Just a strange, tired peace. She ghosted me once for a rich man. In the end, I became richer than both of them, but it didn't matter, because what I learned was worth more than any fortune. Not every treasure is meant to be found, and not every ghost stays gone.